Yes, folks, the New York Giants can absolutely go from worst to first in the division. Locked on Giants starts right now.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in America. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as from New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And we welcome on in, as always, our Everydayer Club members, our Blue Crew community members, our newcomers, and everybody else in between. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, Giant fans, on today's episode, we're going to take a look at why the New York Giants can conceivably go from worst in the NFC East to first. We're going to look at the expectations, and this extends beyond the fact that they got John Harbaugh, which is a big game changer for the Giants. So we'll look at some reasons why that can happen, why the Giants should be a lot better in 2026 than they were 2025 and 2024. So that'll be our first segment. And then in segment number 2, what needs to happen? What changes can John Harbaugh affect, if you will, to make this all come together? And there are a few things he can do. So I've got some data which will support what I'm going to present to you, and we'll see, of course, how that plays out once John Harbaugh really gets in there and starts, putting together and enforcing his plan. And then finally, in segment 3, I have another player interview for you. This was from a couple weeks ago when Baggy Day took place, and I spoke with Jon Runyan Jr., the left guard, about the offensive line, about the team in general. Had a nice chat with John. He was really, really good. So I will play that interview. It was an audio interview, so there's no video on that, but I will play that for you in segment 3. He had a lot of interesting things to say that I will share with you. So that is today's list of topics. Let's get into it. All right. The John Harbaugh hiring, I don't have to tell you guys, I'm excited about it. I know a lot of you are excited about it. It stands to make a difference with this team. I mean, Harbaugh has been there, done it. He knows what winning looks like, or he knows what a winning organization should look like. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about this hire. But all that said, it looks good on paper, but realistically speaking, can the Giants go from worst in the division to first in the division? Now, you'll notice I'm not saying worst to first in general terms, because I still think the Giants are not going to necessarily turn it around to where they go from being at the bottom of the barrel to a Super Bowl contender, not in 1 year. I think they'll be a playoff team, but there's things that have to happen, which we'll get into later on in the show. So let's take a look at why, realistically speaking, the Giants, now that they have John Harbaugh, should be able to push it over the top and be a lot more competitive in the division, which, as I've said many times on the show before, that's where it starts. If you can win your division, that means you'll get a home playoff game, and that gives you kind of an advantage if you can follow through on that. So let's look into it, okay? Obviously, you have Harbaugh's track record. The man just knows how to win. And he's never really had a horrible season, certainly not like what the Giants have had the last several years, where they barely have won anything, all right? And most of all, even when Harbaugh has had those rare instances where his teams haven't looked good or they haven't won, they've at least looked competent, all right, as opposed to, a team that looked like the Keystone Cops, which, unfortunately, I hate to say at times the Giants look like. So just the mere fact that Harbaugh knows what winning looks like and what it takes to get there, that's a plus. And we'll find out a little bit more, obviously, on his philosophies as we speak with him at his introductory press conference, which is scheduled for Tuesday at noon. But more on that in a moment. All right. The other reason that gives me reason to hope that the Giants will be better, they have a fairly easy schedule. Now, I am not a huge fan of using strength of schedule as any kind of metric, but I know there are people out there and they're like, okay, last year in 2025, the Giants had the hardest schedule, so naturally they weren't going to win. Well, this year, for what it's worth, its strength of schedule, the combined strength of schedule of the Giants' opponent is 0.498, which gives them actually the 17th hardest strength of schedule. So the Giants were in the bottom half of strength of schedule, so it should be a lot easier for them. But most importantly, I think what really gives me hope that the Giants could potentially be an 8 or 9 win team. And this is, of course, is without seeing any roster moves that they make, without seeing the draft, without knowing what injuries might pop up. But what gives me hope is the young core that the Giants have. Now, I felt last year that the Giants were a lot better than what they showed, that they lacked direction from the coaching staff, that the coaching staff that was in place didn't get the most out of that group. I think the staff that John Harbaugh is going to put into place is going to make a big difference. Okay. You're going to see guys that, maybe we were writing off, maybe, who knows, Jalen Hyatt, for example, guys like that who we're writing off, maybe they turn around. I mean, it has been known to happen. Sometimes a player, goes dead and buried on a roster under one coaching staff, then in comes a new coaching staff, and lo and behold, the player performs better. So guys that we're maybe giving up on now because, they just haven't looked good, the Jalen Hyatts, the Deonte Banks of the world, maybe they turn it around. If John Harbaugh and his, the staff that he's going to put together, if he can't get the most out of these guys, then they are legitimately players that should not be on any NFL roster, let alone the Giants. So that gives me reason to be optimistic. But really the young core, if you look at it from front to back, from offense to defense, the Giants, you can make a case, have at least one solid young player at every position. All right. Jackson Dart at quarterback. You can say Tyrone Tracy at running back, Theo Johnson at tight end, Andrew Thomas on the offensive line. And you can also throw in John Michael Schmitz, Dexter Lawrence on the defensive line. You might be able to throw in Darius Alexander there as well. Edge rushers, you got Brian Burns and Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau. Inside linebacker, if they keep Bobby Okereke, you can make a case for him. In the defensive secondary, Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips. They've got a lot of good core young players. They just have underperformed. And I believe that John Harbaugh, when he gets in here, when he puts together his staff, you will see a difference. It'll be the same players, but they'll be playing a lot differently. And obviously it's too soon to kind of analyze what they're going to do and how it's going to be different, but the talent's there. And sometimes, talent gets wasted by coaching staffs. And I think a great example of that was when Julian Love, the safety, was on the Giants for like 3 of the first 4 years or so of his Giants career. He wasted away. And you sat there and you say, gosh, did the Giants make a mistake in drafting him? And then all of a sudden he became a starter and he was pretty good. And now, he's out with Seattle, unfortunately for the Giants, but good for him. And Julian Love has actually made Pro Bowls. So he is playing at a high enough level. So sometimes, it takes a different coaching staff to bring out the best in the talent. So, call me an eternal optimist, but I think that Harbaugh and the staff that he's going to bring in might just be able to push some of these underperforming Giant players that we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years, get them over the hump and get them to perform a whole lot better than what they have shown thus far. All right, now coming up next, there are some changes that are going to need to be made in the Giants organization. What are some of the changes that can potentially support the idea of the Giants going from worst in the division to first in the division? Well, we'll discuss those right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Well, now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app right now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to have a recap of John Harbaugh's introductory press conference that takes place today, Tuesday. If you are watching this on Tuesday at noon, it will be broadcast live on Giants.com. But in addition to the press conference you will see on Giants.com, there's usually little side press conferences that take place with team ownership, with players, with VIPs from the team. And, there's little huddles that the reporters in attendance can get in on. So that's something, I'm going to be very active going from huddle to huddle and getting some additional information that maybe I can pass along to you on the podcast. So really excited to bring you that, as well as to break down what John Harbaugh had to say. I already got my question set up for him. So we'll see if I can get the question in with all the media that is expected to be there. The Giants actually expecting an overflow of media at this presser. It's a big one. It's a big event. So, all right. So that's coming up. And then also on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., a special time, we're going to have the Giants squad show. Myself, Jay Berman, Mark Collins. Again, we'll talk John Harbaugh. We'll talk about a whole bunch of things. You won't want to miss it. So it's going to be a really busy day. A lot of content coming your way on the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, let's get back to today's show. So we just talked about how the Giants, or why the Giants could potentially go from worst in the division to first in the division, which is the first step towards being relevant. But there are some things that have to change, obviously. Now, John Harbaugh, my understanding is he's going to have a little bit more say, probably more say than any head coach the Giants have ever hired, in terms of not just the football program, but the supporting programs around it. All right. Now, whether that means PR, marketing, medical, whatever the case may be, supposedly he's going to have a say in that. Now, there are certain departments I can't see him really fussing about, but there are some that I can see him fussing about. And the number one thing that I think needs to be built out, or at least looked at, is the Giants' injury situation, which has not been very good these last few years. Now, before anybody turns around and says, oh, the Giants, Harbaugh's going to get rid of Ronnie Barnes, I keep telling you guys, The medical team themselves, Ronnie Barnes and the doctors, they treat injuries. They don't necessarily cause them. What causes injuries, folks, is not warming up properly, not recovering properly. There's a sports science to it. And for those of you who want to argue, it's the MetLife Stadium turf, that's part of the problem. Well, I'm here to tell you that is not part of the problem. How do I know? Because on SIS, Sports Information Solutions, they did a breakdown. They updated their list of man games lost for all 32 NFL teams and the value of the guys that were lost. And I'm here to tell you, the Giants, 278 total games lost. The players that were missing had a combined value of 176. And, that's a metric that SIS put together based on the start, whether a player was a starter, a key reserve, or whatnot. The Jets, who also play on MetLife Stadium turf, they had 224 man games missed with a value of 105. Now, look, there is something to be said here about keeping guys healthy because, look, you have the Jaguars, the Eagles, Denver, Seattle, the Rams, and the Patriots, all playoff teams, and their values per SIS on the man games lost scale under 100. So one of the things, if you're John Harbaugh, that you absolutely want to hone in on, besides the analytics, I guess, and analytics, you know how I feel about analytics, but it's something he wants to build up too. But you figure out how you keep these guys healthy. You can't be having soft tissue injuries. You can't be having calf injuries. You can't be having hamstrings and all this other, soft tissue issues. Now, again, unfortunately, ACLs are going to happen. Broken bones are going to happen. Those are the types of injuries that maybe you can't avoid, but you can do things to make sure that, you're not having hamstrings or groins or necks or anything soft tissue related, quads, you name it, if a soft tissue injury, that's what you can look to avoid. And that's probably the number one thing I would like to see John Harbaugh try to address. Okay, the second thing that I hope he really dives into would be game management. Now, specifically, there were times last year and the year before that I didn't particularly care for the game management strategies specific to timeouts, to challenges, to whether to go for it or not go for it, whether to kick a 2-point conversion or a PAT. That, I suppose, all figures into the analytics aspect of it. But look, as far as I'm concerned with analytics, they're useful to a degree, but at some point, common sense has to kick in. All right. Despite what the analytics say, that's like saying, your odds of winning the lottery increase with, X number of tickets that you buy. There's no guarantee. I mean, people who buy one ticket can win the lottery just as easily as people who buy a gazillion of them. So, analytics, I understand the role that they have, but I'd like to see maybe a little bit more old-fashioned use your noggin type of approach by the coaching staff and John Harbaugh when it comes to game management situations. I felt like there was too much of a reliance on analytics. And, maybe it was a result of, the analytics department not being as big as maybe Harbaugh envisions it to be. But again, at some point, you've got to use your noggin. You just can't just rely on that all the time. All right. The other thing that I think is a big, big thing, player development. And I'm not just talking about on the field. All right. Yes, on the field, it's important. You sit back and you say, okay, why are certain guys regressing? Why aren't they advancing in their career? Why do they look like they're stuck in the mud? How much of that is a result of what might be going on behind the scenes? And by that, I mean, what's to say that, the Giants don't get a player in here and who is a big shot on college and he gets into the pros and he figures, hey, I don't have to do much. I'm here. Well, getting to the NFL is only like the first step. Staying in the NFL is a lot harder. And that takes maturity. That takes a commitment. So, there have been instances over the past where, you talk to some of these players and you question whether they really got it, whether they really understand what it takes to be successful in the NFL. Part of that lies with player development. All right. So we're talking not just, again, developing their skill sets on the field, but developing their minds so that they grasp, hey, I've got to, study more. I've got to do more film work. I've got to, lift weights more. I've got to take better care of my body, watch my diet, all the little things that creep up that have sabotaged certain players over the years. All right. So that's a big thing. So those things are just amongst the key things that I believe if the Giants are going to go from worst to first in the division, those are some of the things they've got to address. Now, there are other little things along the way. If I had put together a wish list, which I won't disclose, but, there are other things I'd like to see that maybe would help me with my job in covering the team, but that's all secondary. Who cares about whether my life is easy? We just want to see the Giants win. Okay, so those are the things that I would say really need to be tackled by John Harbaugh. Now, he might feel differently. Obviously, he might say, hey, there's more things we can do. But from my experience and being in the locker room, talking to people, what I've observed, those are the things, the biggest things that I think the Giants need to tackle in order to start turning this franchise around. All right, Giant fans, coming up next, we're going to hear from Jon Runyan Jr. So don't go anywhere. We'll have that for you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win, but let's be real. Plain water doesn't always cut it. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor developed proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. In the cold weather months, it's just as easy to become dehydrated. So I've turned to Drip Drop as part of my daily routine to stay hydrated. It's honestly a game changer, and I absolutely love the taste. My favorite flavor being watermelon. I also love that it delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. Drip Drop's science-backed formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. They have flexible subscription options so that you're never stuck without it. And right now, Drip Drop is offering our listeners 20% off their first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get 20% off your first order. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Hey, Giant fans, the NFL playoffs are here, and every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. On NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app that is loaded with multiple profit boosts so that you can apply to the bets that you like the most. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. So go on and visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And again, coming up on tomorrow's show, we are going to recap a busy day that is upcoming here at the Land of the Giants at East Rutherford. John Harbaugh's introductory press conference, all the little side press conferences that are going to go on. There's going to be a lot to talk about, and I will have a show for you just as soon as I get back from the Giants facility. And I will also have for you little video shorts that I will post on the Locked On Giants YouTube channel. So do make sure you check out that content, and also check out New York Giants on SI. I'll have some written stuff for you there as well. All right. Now, coming up, I still have some interviews left over from Baggy Day, one of which I'm going to play for you now. Jon Runyan Jr. and I spoke for about 6-7 minutes or so on Baggy Day about a variety of different topics. Really good interview. I mean, Believe it or not, this was one of the first times I really had an extensively long conversation with Jon Runyon Jr. I'm sorry I hadn't done it earlier because he was really, really good. So I don't have video for you. I do have the audio. I'm going to play the audio for you now. Hope you enjoy this interview with Jon Runyan Jr. Ask you about the O-line because you guys did pretty good this year.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so.
What do you attribute that to? Chemistry, having worked together? I mean, Carm, I'm sure, all of the above.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of all that. Like you said, the chemistry, this is kind of like our second year of all of us playing together. I think we're like a pretty close-knit O-line as well. And Carm and James in the O-line room, they do a lot to, make sure we're going to the right people, doing the right things on the field, and we kind of take over the rest, when the play happens and stuff. So they get us in the right spots, and then it's just up to us to do what we do. And they coach us really hard, and we work together well, and it's kind of just like a nice mix of everything working.
I want to ask you about JMS. I thought he improved this year.
Yeah.
What did you see from JMS, having worked next to him?
Yeah, definitely. This is year 3 for him. This is a tough offense to come in here like his rookie year and take over and fully understand everything. And he's kind of just the general on the field for us, directing the troops around, getting everybody set, and physically playing. Like, I saw a lot of really good stuff from him this year. I don't really know what was said about him, outside of this building, but I think he's the key part to our success as an offensive line, playing center. It's a really undervalued position for whatever, but kind of one of the most important in the NFL. So having a guy like him, having a guy like Austin Schlottman too, who was able to step up 4 or 5 games this year when he wasn't available, was awesome. And I feel like we didn't skip a beat with either of them in there, and everything worked out well.
You play next to Andrew Thomas. They say that, it's like a cascade type of effect, that one guy can make the next guy next to him better. Yeah. Did you find that with Andrew, working next to him?
For sure. I love playing next to him. He's one of the smartest players I've been around. He makes my life a lot easier, and there's a lot of like third downs. Defensive linemen like to run picks and games and stuff, and having him next to me, I know he's always going to protect me, and I'm going to protect him. And he's always keying me in on stuff that he feels may happen, and he's usually right about it. So he's a really smart player, big, strong, physical guy, and I really, really enjoy working with him. Makes my life a lot easier.
Going back to the coaching for a second, James was a former center. Yeah. How much of that do you feel was a benefit, as opposed to maybe someone who kind of was coaching it but never really played the position?
Yeah. Carm had played, obviously not a super high level. Great coach, knows all the X's and O's. And James, also a very smart player. He played. He's a coach. He sees it from our perspective. He kind of understands, the kind of stuff that we have to go through. Because I feel like anybody can really kind of, learn and look from, learning on the whiteboard, the projector, in the meeting room, but then applying that to walkthroughs and on the field and the heat of the battle, it's kind of a different story. So James does a good job trying to, simplify things for us and have us, kind of really break it down and understand it at a deeper level, and from his perspective as well, works well. And it's a good kind of tandem that we got in there between Carm and James, getting us all right.
Carm said he was under contract for next year. How, you talk about continuity amongst the 5 or 6 or whatever O-line. How important is to have the continuity with the coaching as well?
Yeah, I feel like Carm did a fantastic job with us. I feel like last year we had a decent year as offensive line, but this year, year 2, we're all back together. Carm's here, full off season with everybody. I feel like we really took off this year, and he is under contract. When new coaches come in here, they kind of have the freedom to do whatever they want, but yeah. I really do hope that they're able to keep Carm. I would love for them to keep James, but I think James might be destined for some higher things. James was amazing, but keeping calm here. I think everybody in the all-line room, maybe the offense as well, would love that kind of the energy he brings in his meetings, and I feel like he just does a great job getting everybody get everybody going where they have to be. And we didn't have a lot of missed assignments this year as well, and I think that's a lot to do with Carm. I think if you go back and watch the tape, I'm sure we weren't the best in the league at sacks given up, but
Yeah, but how much of that is on the quarterback?
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah. I mean,
Jackson, I love Jackson, but
Young
he likes to
quarterback.
take a lot of 1-yard sacks.
Yeah.
Rushing, and
Yeah.
the rushing game and the passing game is all an extension of us as well. And I felt like able to move the ball, it scored a lot of points. And obviously, I think we could be better in the red zone in certain areas, but I felt like offensive line, no matter, we didn't let our situation kind of dictate what we did all season, and we were kind of like a real, kind of like blue collar mentality, especially this past game too.
All right, Giant fans, that was New York Giants guard Jon Runyon Jr. So thanks to him for taking the time to chat with me one-on-one. That's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. And folks, before we say goodbye, as always, thank you for making Locked On Giants part of your day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. If you're a true diehard New York Giants fan, check out our Everyday or All Access program. You'll get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store, regular video calls with me, and a whole lot more. Head to lockedonnygiants.supercast.com to join the Everyday or Access program and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. All right, Giant fans, again, that does it for this edition of Locked On Giants. I'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode for you, recapping John Harbaugh Day. And also, don't forget, check out the Giants Squad Show on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour live stream. Myself, Jay Berman, will see you very shortly for what should be a very busy day.